I remember that day so vividly, an ordinary afternoon that turned into something I could never forget. The kind of story that makes you reconsider every legend you've ever heard, every ghostly tale you dismissed as nonsense. Let me take you back to the heart of Long Shuyan, by Duy Tan Bridge, where something truly eerie unfolded. It was around 3 in the afternoon. I was lying on the couch with my family, the TV on, the sounds of an ordinary day filling our house. Then suddenly, a sharp, frantic noise cut through our quiet, screams echoing from the alley near the river. My heart skipped a beat, and before I knew it, I was on my feet, rushing to see what had happened. I recognized the terrified voice of Lon, a neighbor, shouting something about a boy who had jumped into the river and vanished. My stomach twisted as I realized it was C, a young guy who lived just a few houses away. The chaos spilled out into the street as more and more neighbors gathered, everyone running towards the bridge. When I got there, the scene was heartbreaking. C's family was already there, desperate, their faces streaked with tears. They were calling his name, but there was nothing but the dark, swirling water below. "Where is he?" C's mother cried out, her voice cracking. "Please, someone help. We need to do something," shouted one of the neighbors. "We can't just stand here." The air was thick with panic and helplessness. Some of the neighbors tried to peer into the water, as if hoping to catch a glimpse of C. Others stood frozen, whispering prayers under their breath. Then, out of nowhere, a woman stepped forward. She was one of those people who always seemed to know things that others didn't. Her face was calm, almost serene, and she moved with a quiet confidence that made everyone pause. She told C's family to go home and bring back his pillow. "Throw it in the river," she said, her voice oddly calm amidst the commotion. "Wherever the pillow stops, that's where you'll find him." A pillow. C's father hesitated, his eyes red from crying. "How can a pillow help?" "Just trust me," the woman insisted, her eyes locking onto his. "It's the only way." The suggestion seemed so strange, but in situations like this, you grasp at any hope, any hint of guidance. So they did it. They brought the pillow and let it drift. It floated slowly down the current, past the bridge, until it paused near a cluster of water hyacinths, swaying in the shallow waters. "There!" someone shouted. It stopped there. A group of men jumped in to search the spot, feeling beneath the cold surface with their hands. "Anything." Lon called out, her voice trembling. The minutes felt like hours. The sun dipped lower in the sky, painting everything in shades of orange and red. The search continued, with each passing moment adding to the weight of despair that hung over the crowd. People whispered to each other, speculating, some even beginning to lose hope. "Maybe he's drifted further down," someone murmured. "No, we can't give up," another replied firmly. Hours passed, the sun was long gone, and the bright moon hung overhead, illuminating the grim scene. Finally, after what felt like forever, one of them surfaced, gasping, "I found him." They pulled C's lifeless body from the water. His limbs were stiff, his hands twisted unnaturally, like he had been fighting some invisible force until his last breath. C's mother collapsed to her knees, her wails piercing the night. "My boy, my poor boy." The sight was unbearable. The crowd fell silent, a heavy sorrow settling over everyone. The cries of C's mother echoed, cutting through the stillness of the night. It felt as if the river itself had taken something precious, and no one could do anything to change it. But the night wasn't over. Just when everyone thought it was time to leave, another woman approached, this one older, her face lined with the kind of stories she'd never tell a stranger. She had been standing quietly in the background, watching everything unfold. "Please," C's father begged, his voice barely a whisper. "Can you help us?" The old woman nodded slowly. She stepped forward and asked C's family to gather offerings, fruit, incense, and a bowl of water. She lit the incense, her murmured prayers drifting along with the smoke. There was something about her presence that was both comforting and unsettling, like she was connected to a world beyond our own. Then, she positioned the bowl beneath the moonlight, until the reflection of the full moon was caught perfectly within it. She kept praying, her voice rising and falling like the current, until at last she looked up and told them, "Now, search the water hyacinths again. You will find her." Her. C's aunt whispered, confused. "Who are you talking about?" "The girl," the woman replied, her eyes distant. "The one who drowned with him. She is still there." A murmur rippled through the crowd. "A girl?" someone asked, their voice barely audible. And just as she predicted, moments later they found her too, sitting at the bottom of the river, her body eerily still, as if she had been waiting there, held by something not of this world. "There she is!" one of the men shouted. "Quick, help me!" The girl's face was pale, her eyes closed, her hands resting gently in her lap. It was as if she had been frozen in time, waiting for someone to bring her back to the surface. They pulled her out, and for a moment, everyone just stood there, staring in disbelief. C's mother, still on her knees, looked up at the girl. "Who is she?" she whispered, her voice barely audible. "Why was she with my son?" The older woman looked at C's mother, her eyes filled with an emotion that was hard to read. "Sometimes the river takes what it wants," she said softly. "And sometimes, it holds on to those who have unfinished business." I still think about that night sometimes. The strange power of that woman, the way the pillow drifted as if guided by unseen hands, the reflection of the moon that seemed to unlock the river's secrets. It makes you wonder, what else lies beneath the surface, hidden in the places we can't see? Maybe the old stories about river spirits and restless souls aren't just stories after all. I remember how the neighbors gathered again the next day, talking in hushed tones about what had happened. Some believed that the old woman was a witch, others thought she was blessed with a special gift. Lon told me later that she had heard stories about similar incidents, times when the river took people, and only those with a connection to the spirit world could bring them back. It was as if the river had its own set of rules, ones that we could never fully understand. The days that followed were a blur of mourning and confusion. C's family held a small ceremony by the river, offering food and incense to appease whatever spirits might dwell there. The older woman was there too, standing quietly at the edge of the gathering, her eyes fixed on the water. I wanted to talk to her, to ask her how she knew, but something held me back. Maybe it was fear, or maybe it was respect for the mysteries she seemed to carry with her. There were whispers in the neighborhood for weeks after the incident. People spoke of the girl, wondering who she was and why she had been there with C. Some claimed she was a spirit, a restless soul who had been lingering near the river for years. Others thought she was simply an unfortunate victim who got caught up in something much larger than herself. C's aunt said she remembered seeing the girl around town once or twice, but no one seemed to know her name or where she was from. It was as if she had appeared out of nowhere, only to vanish back into the shadows of the river. One evening, a few weeks later, I saw C's mother sitting by the riverbank, staring out at the water. I approached her quietly, unsure of what to say. She looked up at me, her eyes red and tired, and managed a weak smile. "Do you think he's at peace now?" she asked, her voice barely more than a whisper. I hesitated, unsure of how to answer. I think he is," I replied. "I think they both are." She nodded, her gaze drifting back to the water. "I hope so. I keep thinking about what the old woman said, about unfinished business. I wonder what it was that kept them here." We sat in silence for a while, the sound of the river flowing gently in the background. There was something both haunting and comforting about being there, as if the river held secrets that it would never fully reveal, but was willing to share just enough to give us a sense of closure. A few days later, Lon told me that the old woman had left town. No one knew where she had gone, but there were rumors that she had been seen heading towards the mountains. Some said she was a wanderer, moving from place to place, helping those in need before disappearing again. Others believed she was a guardian of sorts, someone who had a deeper connection to the spirit world and was destined to live her life on the fringes of society, never truly belonging anywhere. I often find myself thinking about her, about the calmness in her eyes, the way she seemed to understand things that the rest of us could barely comprehend. I wonder if she knew more than she let on, if she could see things that were invisible to the rest of us. And I wonder if, somewhere out there, she is still helping people, still guiding lost souls back to where they belong. The incident by the river changed the way I see the world. It made me realize that there are things out there that we can't explain, forces at work that we may never understand. The river, once just a familiar part of our town, now seemed like a living entity, something with a will of its own, something that could both give and take away. It was no longer just a place where we went to cool off on hot summer days or to watch the boats drift by. It had become something mysterious, something that demanded both respect and caution. Thanks for sticking around till the end. If you enjoyed this story, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe to my channel. There are more tales to tell, and you won't want to miss them. Stay curious, stay safe, and I'll see you in the next one.